skipping ahead in our timeline a little bit this morning. I want to kind of spend the whole day just focusing on the Passover, what Easter's all about, and so we are nowhere near Exodus 12, but we are this morning. And so Exodus 12, we're going to be in there this morning, and again, we're digging into the life of Christ. We're going through some of these aspects of what Christ has done. And have any of you ever done any writing, like written stories or anything like that? All right, so some of you have. When you write, typically, depending on how you write, typically you have an ending in mind. And so you're plotting out the storyline, you're coming up with a theme and a character arc and all those things. And I want you to imagine, again, you're plotting out the story, and there's this principle called foreshadowing. So in literature, if you've ever had to study fine arts or short stories or all of those, I remember when I was in college, I signed up for a class called short story because I thought it was writing short stories, but it was reading short stories. And so the whole class was just reading all these short stories from all over the nations and stuff. It wasn't nearly as exciting as I thought it was going to be. You got to read the course descriptions. I learned that very quickly. Every now and then you get in a class, you're like, what am I doing in here? But anyway, so I got in this short story class, and if you've ever done any writing or reading of short stories, you kind of understand the concept of foreshadowing. It's hints that are left before, and then later on, once you get to the end of the story, you're like, oh, I gotcha. That little thing you dropped way back at the beginning, I missed it. And sometimes it's kind of cool. I don't know if you've ever done this where you've reread a book that you've already read before, and you've gone back and you're like, oh, I see. Oh, you did the thing, and you start going back through and you're unpacking the story, knowing how it ends, and you're seeing it again, kind of for the first time. That's what this is. So as we get here in Exodus chapter 12, there's just so much to unpack. There's so much cool stuff in here that I want you to see. But I remember hearing a story where fictionally they imagined two men who are sitting here, and I mean, think about the chaos that these people just went through. So they've been slaves in the land of Egypt for hundreds of years. They've just seen God, plagues of darkness and plagues of frogs and blood, the Nile River turning to blood. All these things, that's got to be crazy to experience. We don't experience that level of miraculous intervention. We get excited, when there's healings and when there's things like that, but just think about the plagues of Egypt and some of the stuff they got to witness and how terrifying that would be. And you're sitting there in the dark, your shoes are on your feet, your walking sticks in your hand, you've just finished eating a very strange meal that God specifically said, do it like this, eat all this, don't, he gave all these very distinct instructions. And you're sitting in there in the dark, and you're finding out that there's going to be a destroying angel that passes through the land. And you kind of have that fear of, if I did something wrong in this setup, someone in my house dies. Or if God doesn't come through the way he said he does, someone dies. Just put yourself in their shoes. You're sitting there, and you probably have the guy over here that's completely confident. He's like, oh yeah, God's going to come through, and he's all chill about it, and he just absolute assurance. And then you probably got the guy over here who he did everything right, and he's still sitting there kind of nervous and scared. And again, it was not a normal time for them. God showed his power and kind of pulled out all the stops for a little while there. And just imagine the fear. We read these stories to kids. These are Sunday school stories, and oh yeah, the plagues of Egypt, and we think. But have you ever thought about actually being there and being in that situation? That's crazy. And you've killed the Passover lamb. You've eaten it. That's not unusual. You're used to at this point, killing animals and doing all that. That's not the weird part. But he said, put blood on the doorposts. You take this little thing and you put the blood on just little parts of the door. And that just seems like a very weird ritual that you're like, what am I doing? And now you're sitting in the dark and you're just waiting for the signal. And again, either this could completely go sideways and someone in your household dies. nothing could happen. Like, that's what some of the other people thought. They're like, nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to put blood on my doorpost. I don't need to do this. This is stupid. Or you could have done something wrong. And I mean, just picture the fear and the concern and just sitting there going, what is going on? And you're sitting there in the dark and you know, okay, if God comes through on his word, tonight's the night we get out of here. I don't know what that means. I mean, we're going to be traveling off into the desert. What does that mean? I mean, just imagine all the fear and the doubt and the uncertainty. And here you got, probably a few different types of attitudes. And obviously you've got people like Pharaoh who look at it and go, no one would dare touch my son. Because Pharaoh goes, I'm not doing it. You got the guy in the dungeon who doesn't really have a choice in the matter. You've got animals who obviously don't have a choice in the matter. But then you've got these people. And what we find out as Exodus unravels, there's a mixed multitude that goes out of Egypt. So it's not just the Jewish people. It's a mixed multitude. That's kind of cool if you think about it. Because you got a bunch of Egyptians and other nationalities who basically go, yeah, we believe in this Jehovah God because we've seen his power and we want to go with you. And so just think about that this Passover is not limited to just the Jews. The punishment is not limited to just the Jews, nor is the deliverance just limited to the Jews. It's all these people. And so Pharaoh is going to suffer the same consequence as the guy in the dungeon. The animals are going to suffer the same consequences. It's just everyone. And so it's a really cool foreshadowing. And even as I described it, you can kind of see the parallels to what Jesus is going to suffer on the cross. He's our Passover lamb. He's shed for us. His blood is that covering that protects us from the destroyer. And it's just kind of cool to sit back and go, God built this foreshadowing thousands of years early. He laid out the groundwork and said, you're not going to completely get it. In fact, you're going to see like little shadows of it and little images, but you're not going to totally get it until later. And one thing, I was chatting with Daniel a week or two ago, and he pointed out that about the time where Christ was being betrayed and all the stuff that was going on there, that was about the time they would have been sacrificing the lamb. So again, you got guys on one side over here who are starting to sacrifice the Passover lamb and get things ready for all of that, and Jesus is going to be sacrificed himself. I mean, it's really fascinating as you kind of look at the timeline here. But we're here in Exodus chapter 12, and I want to just kind of look at this idea of the blood. And so you're here, Exodus chapter 12, and we've just come off the plagues of Egypt. And what's fascinating with the plagues of Egypt, and we don't have time to get into it this morning, but the plagues of Egypt are a full frontal attack on all of Egypt's gods. Like, you look at the various things that the Egyptian gods were in charge of, and God is just, he's leveling both barrels at those fake gods, and he's just letting them have it. And so there's a god of the Nile, and God says, hey, guess what? The Nile is blood now. Okay, there's a god of frogs. Guess what? They're going to be everywhere. You want them gone? You're going to have to ask me. There's a god of magic. There's a god of this. There's a god of that. And what you see is it's really interesting, because the false priests were able to duplicate a lot of the miracles that Moses was doing up until basically the goddess that was in charge of magic, her realm was destroyed. And now suddenly those guys can't duplicate it anymore. So like, people have looked at some of these weird things and they're going, it really is almost like God is basically just systematically disassembling the Egyptian worship system. Like, he is just destroying it. I mean, there's one of their chief gods is the god of the sun, and what does God do? He goes, it's going to be absolutely dark everywhere except right there over my people. And it's going to be like cave darkness, like dark, not just like shadowy, no, like this is going to be painful levels of darkness. Where's your God? And so God has just systematically disassembled the Egyptian worship system. I mean, he's just destroyed them. And now he's basically saying, okay, I'm going to do the final move. And Pharaoh was viewed as a god. And what he's doing is he's now saying, okay, you're going to let my people go, or I'm going to take your firstborn. I'm going to show that even you're not safe, Pharaoh. And what he does is he basically lays it out. And he says, you have this choice to do it my way, or I'm going to keep disassembling everything you have. And what we see is Pharaoh keeps hardening his heart. So Pharaoh will harden his heart here, and God will harden Pharaoh's heart there, and Pharaoh will harden his heart. And it just goes back and forth. And basically what you see is this is the final strike where God says, okay, we're done. I've attacked all the realms of your gods. I've disassembled your whole worship system. I've showed you that I am God in heaven alone. Now I'm going to let my people go. And they're going to go out in strength. They're not going to run away. And look what happens here in Exodus chapter 12. Because again, you've had that whole buildup. And it says, and the Lord spake to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt and said, this month shall be to you the beginning of months. Shall be the first month of the year to you. So this is kind of setting the important stage. This is going to be an important event that happens. Speak you unto the congregation and say, in the 10th day of the month, they shall take every one a man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for a house. And if the household be too little for a lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto him take according to the number of souls. Every man according to his eating shall you count for a lamb. And so he's taken into account, he's like, I know not every one of you is going to be able to afford a lamb, so let's make some provisions here. A really cool foreshadowing. You know, when it comes to the sacrifice of Christ, it's not based on how much you have or nothing. He's saying, hey, this lamb's going to count. And so just kind of some beautiful little pictures here. But he says this, verse 5, your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You shall take it from the sheep or from the goats, and you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take the blood, they shall strike it upon the posts of the upper door, the posts of the houses, where they shall eat it. They shall eat the flesh in that night, roast it with fire, with unleavened bread, and bitter herbs shall they eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast it with fire, his head, with its legs, with the pertinence thereof. And so basically cook everything. Everything that's involved in this thing, just cook it right up. You're not going to save a little piece. I don't know why you would, but, you know, you're not doing that. So he's just saying everything. Cook it all up. Nothing shall remain of it until morning. That which remain of it you shall burn with fire. Thus shall you eat of it, with your loins girded, with shoes on your feet, with staff in your hand. You shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and I will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And like I said, the plagues of Egypt, if you look at what they really were, that full frontal attack on all these gods of Egypt. They all had their different realms. They all had their different areas of authority, and God's basically coming in and going, you don't know who I am? Okay, let me show you who I am. I can beat that God, and that God, and that God, and that God. And he disassembles it all, and he says, I am attacking your gods to show you you're worshiping the false gods. And it's, again, that's what you see here. Verse 13, the blood shall be to you a token upon the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. Now I know even as I read these lyrics, sometimes the song comes into your head. I will pass over you, you know, and we think of it. But think of the terror of that. And that's why I tell you that story of all the chaos that they've seen, all the power of God that they've seen. And now they're sitting in the dark with a stick in their hand, shoes on their feet, they're dressed, ready to run. And God says, just wait for it, okay, all right? I'm about to pass through the land, and if I see the blood on the door, I'll move on to the next house. And if I don't see the blood on the door, I'm going into that house. That's terrifying. And that's what he's doing here. He's saying, I see that blood on the doorpost, I will pass by it. And I think that's where sometimes, that's why I like to teach new songs, because there's times where when you learn a new song, suddenly the lyrics mean something. But I think a lot of times our brain goes into autopilot when we know a song over and over. And it's like, when I see the blood, I will pass over you. And we don't think about what that means. It's just become rhythm to us. But you see here, he's saying, hey, there's going to be a deliverance if you do it my way. There's going to be a protection if you do it my way. And I will pass over you. All right, verse 14. This day shall be to you a memorial. You shall keep it in a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. You shall keep it in a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days you shall eat the unleavened bread. The first day you shall put away the leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leaven from the bread from the first day to the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. So he's taking this really seriously. He's saying, I've got a special way I want you to do this. I've got a special ceremony. But again, you're understanding it's the blood that matters, but I'm having you do this a special way. Verse 16, in the day that there will be a holy convocation, the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which a man must to eat. So like if you can eat. And only that may be done of you. You shall observe the feast of unleavened bread, for in the selfsame day have I brought you and your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall you observe this day in your generations by an ordinance forever. In the first month, the 14th day of the month, you shall eat unleavened bread, until the 21st day of the month at evening. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your house, for whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether it be a stranger or he that was born in the land. You shall eat nothing leavened in all your habitations. You shall not eat leavened bread. He just repeated himself twice. So he's really trying to make sure they understand that. Verse 21, and Moses called for all the elders of Israel. And he said unto him, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. You shall take a bunch of hyssop. You shall dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and you shall strike the lintel and the two side posts of the blood that is in the basin. None of you shall go out the door of his house until the morning. And so he's trying to calm them down in a way. Say, don't rush out. Stay inside. Put the blood on the doorpost and just wait. There's no use running. There's no use sneaking out. You're not going to accomplish anything. Stay in your house. Be ready to go. I'll give the word. Then you can leave. And again, there's a level of fear, but there should be a level of confidence here that says, we did it God's way. This blood is sufficient. We've done it God's way. I know there's a fear here going, but what if? Who are you trusting? And that's what the children of Israel have to understand. Who are you trusting? They've seen the power of God. They've seen the miracles of God. They've seen God absolutely trounce the most powerful empire in the world at the time. I mean, he's just destroying them. And now he's saying, okay, now wait. Just sit there and wait. And God will give you the signal. Verse 23, for the Lord will pass through and smite the Egyptians. When he sees the blood upon the lintel and upon the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come into your homes to smite you. And so here's the fascinating thing. So you've got this destroying angel that's going to move through the land. And it's like God himself is standing in front of that door saying, no, you don't get to come into this one. I mean, that's really the image that is presented. Like in part, he's talking about God passing through the land. But really, if you look at the way that's worded, it talks almost like God himself is standing guard at that door saying, no, you don't get this house. And the destroyer keeps going. You don't get this house. Okay, that door doesn't have the blood, go in. And that's this idea. He says, he will not suffer the destroyer to come into your house to smite you. And you shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass, when you come into the land which the Lord will give you, according that he has promised, that you shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass. So why is this being done? It's not being done as a ritual that will keep delivering you. The deliverance happened, and the ritual is there to remember what happened. The ritual is to remind us of the power of God, to remind us of the blood and the importance of the blood. The ritual itself is not what's going to save. The ritual itself is not the ritual is saying, God saved us at the Passover. God protected us this blood was important. And now the commemoration of it is to look back and say, look what God did. And if God did it then, he can do it again. If God trounced all the Egyptian gods then, I don't have to worry about the gods of this land. In our Genesis study, remember, we're dealing with that over and over and over, where one of the big problems Israel had was going after false gods. And you think about the very story of the Passover as God saying, I am eradicating the Egyptian gods. And if I can eradicate the Egyptian gods, I'm not afraid of Baal. I'm not afraid of Moloch or all these. I don't care. I'm in charge here. And again, the ceremonies are meant to point us back to what God did. They're not the thing. And so there are ceremonies that we do. There are, you think about the brass serpent that was put up in the wilderness. The brass serpent that was put up in the wilderness. It was a picture of God's deliverance. Look and live. But what did the children of Israel do? They kept it. They didn't keep it like a museum piece. They kept it to the point they started worshiping it. To the point that someone had to come along and say, this is Nehushtan. This is just a brass thing. This is a symbol of the deliverance God gave, and you are now worshiping it? No, it's done. And they destroyed it. because it was the danger of losing what God had done in the symbol of what he... And so again, what do you see here? He's saying this Passover is going to be something you observe. But remember, it was the blood. It was I delivered you. All right? And so as you keep going here, it says this, and it shall come to pass that you shall keep this. And when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service? That you shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover. Think about that word. It is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover. The Lord passed over us. And we're reminded every day that the Lord passed over us. He didn't kill us. He went by. He protected us. And the people who chose not to do the blood, they were the ones who died. He didn't pass over them. So he passed over. And so this very holiday is Passover. It's a celebration of God passing over us and not judging. And look what he says. It shall be, it's the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the house of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head and worshipped, and the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. So did they. And it came to pass at midnight that the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh, who sat upon the throne, unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, to the firstborn of the cattle. So this is a universal non-passing over. He went to everyone who didn't have the blood on the doorpost. Everyone who didn't have the blood on the doorpost, all the firstborn died. Which is really interesting. This is just a side note. But Pharaoh didn't die in this, which meant he probably wasn't the firstborn, which is kind of interesting when you think about how lineages were set up. So apparently Pharaoh was spared because he wasn't the firstborn. And so Pharaoh survives. His son doesn't. And so again, it's that consequence that comes up. And it says, and Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and his servants and all the Egyptians. There was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. I mean, that's just devastating. I mean, that's devastating. And no wonder he said, we're done. We're not playing this game anymore. And look what he says. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and he said, rise up, get you forth from among the people, both you and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as you have said. That was the incentive. That was the impetus that he said, I'm done. You're out of here. It's funny because leading up to this point, when Pharaoh actually thought he stood a chance, you notice, like with the frogs and other things, he was like, well, we'll linger till morning. It's not a big deal. I mean, he hesitated and lingered and did all this stuff, and now what do you notice? It came home, and he said, I'm done. Get out of here. And so again, let's look at this foreshadowing. It's fascinating. If you want to turn to the next passage we're going to look at, Hebrews chapter 10 is the next passage. But I want to lay this out. Like I said, this is a lot of foreshadowing. You can see the pictures all over the place. You can see the pictures of Christ's sacrifice all over the place. But think about this. The blood is a sign. And so in the Passover, the blood is a sign to basically say this house is protected. You think about the blood of Christ. You think about when Christ dies on the cross. His blood is laid to our account. And what is it? It's a sign. I mean, he goes to our defense. He stands up against Satan, who's the accuser, and he says, they're mine. And so it's interesting that the blood is a sign. It says this is a token. And so what is it in the Passover? It's a sign. It's a picture on the wall, on the doorpost that says, this house is protected. It's also a promise. The blood is a promise in that it's a stain on the doorpost that basically says, I will not come in. I will not invade this house. You are safe. You think about the promise of Christ on the cross. What is it? You put your trust in him. What? There's deliverance. It's a promise. It's a sign. It's also a protection. And you see that. The blood stands as protection to say the destroyer is not allowed to come in. Now think about it. When God declares us just, when God justifies the ungodly, as it were, does that mean we actually are innocent of all of our sins? No. Like, we are still guilty. We still, in our hearts, know that we are sinners. But in God's eyes, what has he done? He has taken that bill of sin, and what has he done? He nailed it to his cross. And what that was a way of expressing the debt has been paid. And so you would take that bill and you would nail it to the wall and say, it's done. It's paid for. Now, does that mean you never owed that debt? No. It just means it's paid. Somebody paid it. And so that's what you see here is you see that blood. It's a sign. It's a promise. It's a protection. But also, the blood was needed. You couldn't get away with going, anybody got some red paint? Or berry juice? Or can we just do it some other way as long as it looks right? The destroyer knows. He's coming through. God knows. Did this house sacrifice a lamb? And so I want you to see that picture. But when you go to Hebrews 10 is where the picture is unpacked for us. And so it's kind of the end of the story. And so Hebrews, obviously written to a Jewish community, hence the name. But in Hebrews chapter 10, look what it says. It says this, verse 1. For the law, having a shadow of the good things to come. That's foreshadowing. It's shadow. We even use that language when we are writing a story. We talk about foreshadowing. It's a shadow of things to come. All right? I don't know if you've ever done shadow puppets or anything like that, where you've got like the shadow and you can't quite make out what the thing is until it like separates and you're like, oh, I see what that shadow is of now. And that's the idea. It's the law is a shadow. It's just a picture. We don't fully get the whole idea until we see it in the light. And it says the law is a shadow of things to come, not the very image of things that can never be. It says this, the very image of things can never, by those sacrifices which they offered year by year continually, make the comers thereunto perfect. And this is what I find sad about a lot of modern day worship, is a lot of modern day worship, even like Christ with the Lord's Supper and some of these things. He says, this is my blood, take it. It's a picture, and people take it and go, oh, no, I need to offer this sacrifice again and again and again. No, the Hebrews is going to tell us, that sacrifice was offered once. And what did Jesus say right before he died? He said, it is finished. It's done. The sacrifice doesn't have to come back and be offered again. What was Passover? Passover was a picture of a one-time deliverance. They're never going to be delivered from Egypt again. They're out of Egypt. But it was a picture to remind them, this is the deliverance you have. And we keep coming back to that picture. We're not offering the sacrifice again, hoping we'll be delivered again. It's the idea of we are saying, it's a picture of what God has done. And so that's what the sacrificial system was. It was a picture, but it could never do it fully. And when Christ came, he did it fully. He finished the work. It was one and done. And so he says this, these sacrifices, they could not make the comers thereunto perfect. For then they would they have not ceased to offer? Because the worshipers once purged, they have no more conscience of sin. So if the sacrifices could take away sin, why would you keep going back? And the whole point of the Old Testament was, these sacrifices are pictures, they're temporary, there's nothing complete about them. Christ's sacrifice is complete. It says, these sacrifices are made in a remembrance again of sin every year, but it is not possible with the blood of bulls and of goats that they should take away sins. Wherefore he saith unto the world, sacrifice and offering thou wouldest not, but a body thou hast prepared me. Then said I, lo, I come, in the volume of the book it is written of me, to do thy will, O God. Above, when he said, sacrifice and offerings and burnt offerings and offerings for sin thou wouldest not, neither hast thou pleasure therein. They are offered by the law. But then he said, lo, I come to do thy will, O God. He taketh away the first, that he may establish the second. By the which will we are sanctified through the offering of the body of Jesus Christ once for all. And every priest standing daily, ministering and offering oftentimes the same sacrifices, which can never take away sin. But this man, after he had offered one sacrifice for sins forever, what did he do? He sat down, which was a sign to say, I'm done with my work. That's why there wasn't a seat in that temple area. Their job was never done. They were constantly moving around offering sacrifices. They had to keep offering them. The only time they would sit down is when the job was done. And that's what he's saying. He's saying, no priest is going to sit down. But Jesus, what did he do? He offered the sacrifice. He sat down. And it says, he sat down on the right hand of God, from henceforth expecting till his enemies be made his footstool. For by one offering thou hast perfected forever them which are sanctified, whereof the Holy Ghost also is a witness to us. For after that, this is what he had said before, this is the covenant that I will make with them after those days, saith the Lord. I will put my laws in their hearts, and in their minds will I write them, and their sins and iniquities will I remember no more. Now where remission of sins there is no more offering for sin. So what is the Passover a picture of? Passover is a picture of the blood was shed, the sacrifice was made, they were delivered, and then they looked back and they remembered the deliverance. By doing the Passover year by year by year, What they were doing is they were saying, remember when God did that great thing? Hey, remember when God did that really cool thing? Hey, remember when God delivered us from Egypt and he freed us and we are no longer slaves to Egypt? And remember when God... They are not offering that sacrifice again to pay and get God to deliver them from Egypt again. No, it's a picture. Well, all this stuff that we do after the fact, looking back at the death of Christ. Christ is the final Passover lamb. He is delivering us not from our physical enemies. He's delivering us from our sin. This is the thing Jesus would repeatedly come back to during his life and ministry on earth, as he was saying, I'm not here to deliver you from the Romans. I'm not here to deliver you from this or that. I'm not even here to take sides in all of your fights. I don't care. My kingdom is not of this earth. I'm here to save you from your sins. And so as his Passover, he delivers us from those sins and says, I've freed you from that punishment. I've freed you from that. And now when it comes to the Lord's Supper, when it comes to all these things that we do to look back, we're not sacrificing him again. We're not offering him again to say, I need to cover those sins again. No, they're covered. They're paid for. The freedom is paid. Now we can look back and celebrate the wonderful thing that he did. But again, what is that picture of the blood? The picture of the blood is a covering. The blood covers a multitude of sin. I mean, the blood is that thing that comes and says, that shedding of blood bought remission. But that trust to say, I am going to trust God's word and I'm going to do it his way. And that blood, I mean, it's interesting. People have made a big deal, and I don't know if this is the significance or not, but you'll notice where Jesus' hands would have been spread and the blood from the crown of thorns, it may have made a similar pattern to side posts of the door and the top of the... I don't know. I don't know if that was what they were, but the point was, the blood is there. The blood provides a covering. The blood provides a protection, and the blood is a finished work. There's nothing more you need to do. He said, put the blood on the door, and you sit there ready to go. And again, it's just kind of a beautiful picture that we see there. But again, the sacrifices, all of this, it's all a picture of what was to come. And then when Jesus finally came, what does he do? It says with his blood, he sprinkled many nations. It was a fulfillment. It wasn't just a picture. As Hebrews 10 says, it was a perfecting. It was finishing the work. And so again, we're going to delve into that. We're going to meditate on that today. But I hope you've all trusted Christ alone for your salvation. We've got to remind ourselves of that. But then after that, we live in it. We live in that sacrifice. Not that we have to keep re-earning it. Once for all, we're delivered from Egypt. We're done. The price is paid. But then now we've got to live, in light of it. That wonderful sacrifice he made, that forgiveness he gave us, are we giving that to others? That wonderful forgiveness he gave us, are we telling others? That's why, again, just a plug for the Wednesday night series. The Wednesday night series we're going through is the idea of these hard questions that we need to be able to answer. But remember, the key point is we are doing it to see people get saved. I was debating with a guy last night even, discussing some of the things. And I had to fight back snark and sarcasm because they come at you with it and you're like... he used AI to come up with an answer for me, and I wanted to be like, I can use AI too. But what are we trying to do? We are trying to win souls. We are trying to share the good news of the gospel, that it's no longer their work that matters. They don't have to keep doing the work. They trust the blood. They trust Christ for their salvation. Now the work comes as a thank you. But we're not trying to earn it afresh. The blood covered, the blood delivered, we're done, we commemorate. But we're not trying to earn it again. We're not trying to curry God's favor. Greater love has no man than this. What? Than a man laid down his life for his friends. And while we were his enemies, he died for us. He showed unbelievable amounts of love to those who were his enemies. We cannot top that. And so again, as we meditate on it today, we celebrate the resurrection. We celebrate his death, that he paid the price for us. Again, it's a one and done. We've got to trust that. We've got to be that guy who's willing to say, I'm just going to trust. However, there then comes some living after it that we've got to do. All right, I do want to end a little bit earlier today, just so we have time to fellowship and just celebrate. But I do want to take questions in case any of that was unclear. I realize that was a crash course in the Passover. Martha.
I have a comment when you was. Oh, thank you, Brother David. I have a comment when you was saying about our Wednesday night study. It's to lead people to the Lord, and I still remember what you said because I was that kind of person. You don't beat them on top of the head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't.
Yeah.
You're not beating them over the head. It's again, you gotta stand for the truth. You gotta stand for the truth, and you've got to say, listen, this is the truth. Whatever. But you do it in love. You do it in love. All right. That's why we start off with the idea. We love God first. We're not going to compromise what he has to say. But the loving others means, okay, I'm going to treat them as best as I possibly can. And if they're snarky with me, I might have to bite my tongue. All right? And that's how we make disciples. All right? All right, any other questions or comments before we close out Sunday school this morning? Mike. Karen first.
Got a microphone.
Okay. It was just a quick clarification in my head. So the Passover, when they put the blood on the doors, that was for everybody, right? The Hebrews and the Egyptians.
Yeah.
But the rest of the plagues did not touch the Hebrews. Is that right?
Obviously,
because they talk about them being in Goshen.
Yeah, they lived in Goshen, but obviously, I guess if you had any water shipments coming from the Nile,
Right. There'd be the residuals, right, that would affect everyone.
Off the top of my head, I don't know if none of them touched the Israelites. I know there were specifically ones like I think the hail, where they said, get all your animals in out of the field. Obviously, that affects everyone who decides to ignore that. The light, so the darkness that was felt specifically around the land of Goshen, it wasn't. So I can't say definitively that none of the plagues touched Israel, but it was primarily an attack on the Egyptians. So I think I'd be safe to say yes. Mike?
Yeah, I was curious about, we know that the Jews have an annual, entering into the temple, or at least when there was a temple. Mm-hmm. What is the relationship of that to the Passover? Is that two completely separate things?
I'm not sure on that one, off the top of my head.
They go in one time, and then one time there's a Passover, and one time there's Jesus on the cross.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious about, it's not the same celebration, same day, or
I'm not
totally
sure
different?
on that one.
It's all right.
Yeah, Ryan might know. Ryan, I'm not sure if I'm...
Yom Kippur was the Day of Atonement.
Okay.
The Passover was a remembrance of what God did in Egypt, when God passed over Egypt. And the atonement was really the day that they sacrificed the lamb. And the Passover was the meal that they observed.
Okay. They're near the same time, right?
Yeah.
They so Ryan's our Jewish expert in the back. Now, it is interesting because the big deal is made where the curtain is torn, and so basically rips that open to say that it's not a thing anymore. So it's interesting little side note there. All right, any other questions or comments, follow-ups to those? All right. Well, let's close in prayer, and then we will get ready for the morning service. And if you are a guest with us today, welcome. There's a bulletin in the back if you need it. And we are going to be singing Mercies Anew and Our Eyes Are Upon You, Lord. But we have the words on the PowerPoints if they cooperate. But if you want sheet music, they're also still in the back. So let's close in prayer, and then we will dismiss. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day, Lord. God, I thank you for being our Passover. Lord, I thank you so much for the foreshadowing and just the pictures that you laid out throughout the Bible and just the fulfillment that we get to see. God, I thank you so much for this time where we can celebrate your death, burial, and resurrection, that we can just celebrate you and that we can brag on you and the wonderful God that you are and the wonderful works that you've done. And Lord, I pray that if there be anyone in this auditorium who's yet to accept you as Savior, that they would. But I pray for the rest of us that you would help us to live in light of the salvation that you've granted to us. Lord, I thank you so much. I thank you so much for just being a wonderful, blessed God that you are. And I pray this, Lord, in your name. Amen. You are dismissed. I think they are still...